Ladies and gentlemen, the Durham probe has filed a pretty amazing response, essentially blocking or preventing an attempt by Michael Sussman to dismiss the indictment and charges against him of lying to the FBI. What happened was he was working, the attorney for the law firm that helped purchase the Steele dossier, this attorney was working on behalf of Clinton. He did not tell Baker, the top legal counsel at the Bureau, that he was being paid by Clinton. Therefore, according to the indictment, the people at the Federal Bureau of Investigation were completely duped. And they were just completely duped, and they thought that he was just giving information, fabricated, false, absurd data and information, non-public data that he acquired. They thought that Sussman was giving information on Trump because he was a good citizen. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Had they known he was working on behalf of Clinton, had they known, they would never have accepted the fabricated false hoax of the Russia Bank, or the Alpha Bank saga and story that even Jake Sullivan and Clinton and all of media promulgated. Hit subscribe to this channel, to my super chat. I can't thank you enough. You help me do these, ladies and gentlemen, and I can't do these without you. So to my super chat, thank you so very much. Everybody here, Eric, David, JG, Luke, Tammy, everyone here, thank you so very much for tuning in. And basically what's taking place is that we'll read the response, but Durham is saying, yeah, you lied. You did so with a specific purpose to deceive. It wasn't an accident. So the lawyer that was paid by Clinton to spread lies about Trump is saying, well, you know, they knew, the Bureau knew, and we didn't have to. We didn't really have to tell the Bureau that we were working on behalf of the Clinton campaign or the DNC anyway. So what's the problem? What's the problem? Why is it that he's being indicted? Well, he's being indicted because Durham is pretty smart. He's actually playing the FBI against this man. So people like Strzok, McCabe, Clapper, Brennan, Comey, all of these people who worked for the Bureau knew very well what they were doing. They were trying to set up and frame Trump. That's what they were doing. They were trying to set up and frame Trump. It's not rocket science. But they were doing so under the guise of, just accepting information like the Steele dossier. They had no clue that the Steele dossier was purchased by the DNC. James Comey even said, well, I don't even know. I have no clue if it's information purchased by the Democrats. I just was given the information, and gosh, we felt from Brennan's and all the information from Brennan and Clapper that Trump might have been working with the Kremlin. Now we're finding out, of course, that President Mashed Potato Brains Biden, everything's taking place. All the worst fears of Democrats during the Trump administration are taking place under the Biden administration. So under President Obama, they took Crimea, and under Mashed Potato Brains Biden, they're taking the entire country, at least Kiev, as well. They've taken the eastern part of Ukraine, and they've also invaded the country, and now they have they have the largest nuclear power plant. They're occupying the largest nuclear power plant in all of Europe, in Ukraine. It's an unmitigated disaster. We are heading also into a recession. Stock market collapse is going to happen this year. I don't know exactly what date, but it's going to be an absolute collapse. JG, David, everyone here, Spectrum, everybody here, Gus, hello. Two Brain Cells, hello. Everyone here, Hetty, hello. JMK, hello. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Let's read this. We can go on forever. You know me, I can go on a million different tangents, but let's just read this really quickly. If you get kicked off of the stream, log back on. Government opposition to defendant's motion to dismiss the indictment. The United States of America and through its attorney, special counsel, John Durham. So when people say, does he really exist? Yeah, he exists. Just because MSNBC and the New York Times, the Washington Post, and CNN don't obsess over him, it doesn't mean that he doesn't exist. He's swimming upstream, this man. And once you have Trump Republicans take over the House and Senate, it's pretty much game over. And you will see more indictments of high-level people, but he just filed this motion today. The United States of America, by and through its attorney, special counsel John H. Durham, respectfully submits this opposition to the defendant's motion to dismiss the indictment for failure to state an offense. For reasons stated below, the government submits that the motion should be denied. So they don't think that lying to the FBI on behalf of being paid by Trump's direct political rivals is an offense, which is hilarious. But they have no problem setting up and framing Trump, but they have a big problem facing the consequences doing so. So here, the defendant is charged with one-count indictment is charged in a one-count indictment with making materially false statements to an FBI official in violation of Title 18, United States Code Section 1001, as set forth in the indictment on September 19, 2016. Less than 2 months after the 2016 U.S. presidential, the defendant, a lawyer at large, international law firm One. Law firm One, by the way, will almost certainly see more lawyers be indicted by the Durham probe special counsel. Yeah. That was then serving as counsel for the Clinton campaign, met with the FBI General Counsel at FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. The defendant provided the Bureau General Counsel with purported data and papers that allegedly demonstrated a covert communication channel between the Trump Organization and a Russia-based bank. Okay, number one, the National Security Agency would have found this out. The man was running for president, so all of his communication, they would have definitely found this out. They wouldn't have needed somebody paid by the DNC or the Clintons. Okay? So they would have found this out. Doomerson, hello! And so the indictment alleges that the defendant lied in that meeting, falsely stating to the general counsel, which was Comey's general counsel at the Bureau, that he was not providing the allegations to the FBI on behalf of any client. In fact, the defendant had assembled and conveyed the allegations to the Bureau on behalf of at least 2 specific clients, including Technology Executive One at a U.S.-based Internet Company One, and the Clinton campaign. So that's the specific crime. They gave information to the Bureau, and they pretended to do so because they were just good citizens caring about national security, when in reality, they were giving information to set up and frame Trump. Now, Baker knew this. The Bureau knew this. But Durham is utilizing the desire for people at the Bureau to distance themselves from the Clinton campaign and distance themselves from Law Firm One and distance themselves from the indicted attorney. They're distancing themselves by saying, gosh, we just thought that the bogus fake news information we were given, we just thought that that was an attempt to save the country from Trump, the Orange Menace. We had no clue that these people had nefarious motives or political motives. We were deceived and gullible and duped. And so that's what Durham is doing. That's what Durham is doing. And that's why he's going to get a lot more in terms of indictments. Okay, because right now, Sussman has to, if he defends himself, he's going to have to try and prove that the Bureau was in on. He's going to have to try and prove that the Bureau was in on setting up and framing Trump. By the way, if you get kicked off of this live stream, Matt, hello. If you get kicked off of this live stream, please go ahead and log back on. So, in fact, the defendant had assembled and conveyed the allegations to the Bureau on behalf of at least 2 specific clients. So he lied. And the Clinton campaign. The defendant's billing record reflects that the defendant repeatedly billed the Clinton campaign for his work on the Russia Bank allegations. In compiling and disseminating these allegations, the defendant and Tech Executive One also met and communicated with another law partner at Law Firm One, who was then serving as general counsel to the Clinton campaign. So the whole thing was the Clinton campaign hiring attorneys to just spread and promote and, give fabricated, false, distorted information that media would never accept. Media, they lie. Media lies by omission. That's the thing. They lie by omission. The indictment also alleges that beginning in approximately July 2016, Tech Executive One had worked with the defendant, a U.S. investigative firm retained by Law Firm One on behalf of the Clinton campaign. So when they say, well, it was all done when President Obama was in office, so what? The surveillance, yes, was a lot of it was done while President Obama was in office. Guess what? The surveillance also was not only done during President Obama's administration, but also after Trump was elected. So that's the thing. And the interesting thing about all of this is how the government's going to have to defend itself when Sussman says, well, you knew what I was up to. That's the hilarious thing. Tech Executive One tasked these researchers to mine internet data to establish an inference and narrative. Not evidence, an inference or narrative. This is despicable. In doing so, Tech Executive One indicated that he was seeking to please certain VIPs, just like Reddit Stone Tier. Remember Reddit Stone Tier? So the government's evidence at trial will also establish that among the internet data Tech Executive One and his associates exploited was domain name system DNS internet traffic pertaining to a particular healthcare provider, Trump Tower, Donald Trump's Central Park West apartment building, and the executive office of the President of the United States. How on earth is this legal? This is an egregious form of surveillance that you wouldn't want the government doing this, much less your direct political rivals. And you wouldn't want the government. Dang it, are you serious? You wouldn't want the government. You would not want the government to utilize information obtained through non-public data by people who despise you in order to get the government to investigate you. This is not rocket science. This only happens one way. But again, you have to understand, this is like quantum physics to morally superior, wonderful, morally superior liberal Democrats. It's quantum physics. They cannot possibly, they simply cannot possibly, they can't possibly they can't possibly admit to they can't possibly admit to setting up and framing um they can't possibly admit to setting up and framing Donald Trump, because to them, setting up and framing Donald Trump means that, well, it's not illegal to do so. They are suspicious, and what they'll do is they will, whenever they feel like it, investigate Trump based on suspicion and lies. And if they investigate Trump based on suspicion and lies, if they investigate Trump based on suspicion and lies, and then give information to the U.S. government, well then, oh my God, what? Sorry, 1 second. Their whole thing is their whole thing is setting up and framing Trump. And what they want to do is what they want to do is set up and frame Trump, while at the same time claiming that they have every right to do so because they're good, honest citizens. And the reality is, what they've done is simply gone after an incoming president to set him up and frame him. What they've done is gone after. We're in the metaverse right now. That's fine, no problem. Sorry, I had to take care of something, or ask. Not a big deal. Here, the indictment further details that on February 9, 2017, the defendant provided an updating set of allegations, including the Russia Bank 1 data and additional allegations relating to Trump, the second agency of the United States government. The government's evidence at trial will establish that these additional allegations relied in part on the purported DNS traffic that tech executive 1 and others had assembled pertaining to Trump Tower, Donald Trump's New York City apartment building, the executive office of the president, and aforementioned healthcare provider. Now, the interesting thing is that how on earth do you extract data, non-public data from a healthcare provider, and have that be legal? That has to be illegal. That can't be legal. That cannot be legal. So that simply can't be legal. And in his meeting with Agency 2, the defendant provided data which he claimed reflected purported suspicious DNS lookups by these entities of Internet Protocol addresses affiliated with a Russian mobile phone. Okay, the defendant further claimed that these lookups demonstrated that Trump and or his associates were using a type of Russian-made wireless phone in the vicinity of the White House and other locations. Well, that would have been discovered by the National Security Agency or the Federal Bureau of Investigation or the Central Intelligence Agency. You wouldn't need lawyers working for the Clintons or the DNC to come up with that information. So you wouldn't need any of that. You wouldn't need an attorney for the Clintons to come up with that information. In his meeting with Agency 2 employees, the defendant also made a substantially similar false statement as he made to the FBI General Counsel. In particular, the defendant asserted that he was not presenting representing a particular client and conveying the above allegations. In truth and in fact, the defendant was continuing to represent Tech Executive 1, a fact the defendant subsequently acknowledged under oath before Congress without identifying the name. So he actually did himself in by telling Congress the truth or lying to the Durham probe or lying at some point. So at some point, Sussman lied about why he was giving the information. He was giving the information because he was being paid to do so. That's the thing. That's the thing. Skunkworks, hello. He was giving information. He was giving information because he was being paid to give the information to either the Central Intelligence Agency or to the Central Intelligence Agency or to the Federal Bureau of Investigation or to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. He was being paid to do so by two clients. So that's the thing. Federal Rule of Criminal The Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 12 permits a motion to dismiss the indictment based on a defect in the indictment or information, including failure to state an offense. In a ruling on a motion to dismiss, the court must assume the truth of the indictment's factual allegations. Then he goes through and then the if they want to kick the case out of court, dismiss the case, the defense has to prove that the facts behind the indictment are false, that they're not true at all. Okay, so a pretrial motion, then he cites the legal precedent argument. The defendant moves to dismiss the sole count of the indictment on the grounds that his alleged false statement to the FBI General Counsel is immaterial as a matter of law. Of course it's material. That's why he lied about it. The whole reason he lied is because he didn't want the fact that he was working on behalf of Trump's political rival. He didn't want the fact that he was working on behalf of Trump's direct political rival. That's why he lied. He didn't tell the truth regarding that. Argument. The defendant moves to dismiss the sole count of the indictment on the grounds that his alleged false statement to the FBI General Counsel is immaterial as a matter of law and thus runs afoul of 18 U.S. Code. Dictate that only materially false, fictitious, and fraudulent statements be criminalized. The argument is without merit. Of course it's materially false. Of course him lying to the Bureau was an attempt to deceive a government agency. If the government agency says that the only reason they obtained the data that was collected on Trump was because they thought the data was collected on behalf of, a genuine attempt at a genuine attempt at trying to see if Trump was a Russian operative or installed by the Kremlin, then that's the issue. The government is saying that the Bureau was deceived. So his lie is very material. He lied either in part to deceive people at the Bureau, James Baker and others, or to protect his clients. Nonetheless, the reality is he still lied about who he was working for. That's all. He did not tell the truth pertaining to his motive. And if he had told the truth, they wouldn't have accepted the information on Alpha Bank. And then you wouldn't have gotten yet another fake news, completely false scenario, or a completely false story pertaining to Trump. The indictment sufficiently alleges that the defendant's false statement was material. Although Section 1001 does not define materially, the Supreme Court has held that a materially false statement has, quote, a natural tendency to influence or be capable of influencing the decision of the decision-making body to which it was addressed. However, as the Supreme Court explained in, a statement need not actually influence an agency for it to be material. It need only have, a, quote, a natural tendency to influence or capable of influencing. Proof of actual reliance on the statement is not required. So they're saying that the defense is saying that you can actually lie, and it's okay that he lied, and it's not a big deal that he lied. And the fact that he lied about who he was working for, that had nothing to do with why the Bureau accepted the information on Alpha Bank. So of course you have a huge problem here. Distilled to its core, the defendant's argument is as follows. At the time of the defense alleged false statements, the only discrete decision to be made by the FBI was whether to initiate an investigation based on the information provided by the defendant. The defendant further claims that because his alleged false statement dealt only with his purported motivation for bringing the information to the FBI, as opposed to the substance of the information, the substance was a completely contrived anyway. The false statements could not have influenced the FBI's decision whether to initiate the investigation. The FBI didn't check initially. They just accepted the information initially based on the belief that he was doing so for national security. That's according to the Bureau's defense. Defendant appears to argue that materiality should only be viewed through the lens of specific agency decisions at a discrete moment in time, in this case whether the defendant's information was material to the FBI's decision to initiate an investigation. But courts have not construed that the materiality element so narrowly. To the contrary, a false statement is material if it has a natural tendency to influence or is capable of influencing. So they're just making things worse for themselves. They're making things worse for themselves because they don't even deny that they lied. In fact, they're saying, of course we lied, and it has nothing to do with anything. And that's the issue. The issue is you have a situation where not only did Sussman lie and not tell the truth, but he's now saying it's okay that he did because the Bureau was going to accept the information anyway, or the Bureau was going to accept the information because the information was important at that point in time. And the fact that he didn't explain who was paying him to give the information, Trump's direct political rival, that has nothing to do with anything. In any event, the defendant's arguments on the mentality of his statement are also premature. The Supreme Court in Gaudens held that materiality is an essential element of Section 1001. Okay, so the defendant's false statement to the general counsel was plainly material because it misled the general counsel, among other things, the critical fact that the defendant was disseminating highly defamatory allegations about then presidential candidate on behalf of two specific clients, one of which was the opposing presidential campaign. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable. You can't get more salacious and nefarious. And the United States government, first of all, Sussman is right about one thing. They knew why he was doing this. They knew who was paying him. They knew that he was coming from a specific law firm that has direct ties to Biden and to Clinton and to Democrats. So they knew. But, the But they're not going to simply say, hey, you know what? They're not going to simply say that we did so because we wanted to go after Trump and we just wanted a reason to go after Trump. That's all. That's all. So here had the defendant truthfully. So this is interesting. The defendant's false statements to the FBI General Counsel was plainly material because it misled the General Counsel about, among other things, the critical fact that the defendant was disseminating highly explosive allegations about then presidential candidate on behalf of two clients, one of which was the opposing presidential campaign. The defendant's efforts to mislead the FBI in this manner during the height of the presidential election season plainly could have influenced the Bureau's decision-making in any number of ways. The defendant's core argument to the contrary rests on the flawed premise the Bureau's only relevant decision was binary in nature, whether or not to initiate investigation. But defendant's assertion in this regard conveniently ignores the fact and practical realities of how the Bureau initiates and conducts investigations. For example, the government expects that evidence at trial will prove the Bureau could have taken any number of steps prior to opening what it terms a full investigation, including but not limited to conducting an assessment, opening a preliminary investigation, delaying a decision until after November, or declining to investigate the matter altogether. Indeed, a host of factors play into the Bureau's decision on whether and how to initiate an investigation, which include, among others, the source and origins of the information. Here, had the defendant truthfully informed the General Counsel he was providing the information on behalf of one or more clients, as opposed to merely acting as a good citizen, the Bureau General Counsel and other personnel might have asked a multitude of questions, additional questions material to the case initiation process. So they would have simply found out if he was doing so for a political purpose. That's the thing. That's the thing. They would have found out if he was giving information for a political purpose. They might have asked, for example, whether the defendant's clients harbored any political biases or business motives that might cast doubt on the reliability of information. And they also likely would have conducted additional behind-the-scenes steps, database checks, case file searches, to assess the defendant's potential motivations and those of his clients. Indeed, it is obvious that a lawyer representing himself as a paid advocate for a client naturally raises specific concerns. So basically, the whole thing, the attempt to dismiss the defense, they said his false statements raised constitutional. Finally, the defendant argues the government's theory of materiality raises serious constitutional concerns with over-criminalization. Are you kidding me? Lawyer-client relationship? No, you can't be hired to go after your political opponent and then hide behind attorney-client privilege. So you can't do that. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable. So, at the end of the day, for the ongoing, the court should deny the defendant's motion to dismiss the indictment. So this was filed today, and this was a response to Clinton campaign lawyer Sussman files motion to dismiss Durham prosecution, and that was a couple of weeks back. This was filed today, and it basically says, yeah, everything we stated in this indictment is accurate. And this indictment will lead to numerous other indictments. Why? Because the government has to distance itself. The United States government has to distance itself from the initial, from the Clinton-linked law firm and from the attorney Sussman. They couldn't distance themselves with Kleinsmith, so that's why Kleinsmith got like a slap on the wrist. But Danchenko and Sussman, those are different indictments altogether. They don't work for the government. They were being paid by Democrats. and it's not that difficult. I mean, you're looking at I don't exactly know what like how many years or what the fine would be, but it's likely going to be a lot more than what Kleinsmith got. So the court is almost certainly not going to just simply the court is simply not almost certainly not going to just dismiss the case because it's a huge indictment. It's the third indictment of the special counsel. So when people say, "Oh, is he really doing anything?" It's like, well, what do you expect? You have all of media against Trump, like all of media. You have zero media attention. I'm one of the few people on YouTube talking about this. So I'm one of the few people on YouTube talking about this issue. And like I said, the more things get heated in terms of everything taking place. Russia is invading Ukraine under Biden's watch. The opposite of they marketed themselves. Look at oil is like almost at $120 per barrel. We're heading into a recession. There is the possibility of a depression depending on how many hedge funds go under or what happens to the banks who helped finance these hedge funds and their risky investments. How many derivatives trades. And then you have Russia about to ban exports of fertilizer. You have commodities through the roof. You have inflation through the roof. And you have inflation that's cutting into wage growth. And they say, well, the job market is hot. Well, okay. But because we had a functioning economy before you ended economic activity. So yes, we had a functioning economy at one point. You allowed economic activity to start. Oh my God. Lord Almighty. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. I am very, very fortunate to have 471 people on this live stream. Very fortunate. There was an issue I had to deal with about 25 minutes ago where I repeated myself 10 times because I was texting somebody. God Almighty! Do I have to explain everything just because I wasn't as coherent as I usually am? My God Almighty. I'm sorry. I am sorry I wasn't as eloquent or coherent. Moving on. And I read the indictment like, what more can I do? Like, sorry, what do you want me to do? This man read the indictment. He's a horrible human being. He should never have been born. H.A. Badman reading indictment. Or reading, sorry, the motion, the file. Down with reading the motion that Durham filed today. Horrible, horrible person you are. Anyway, I'll deal with the issue that I was sidetracked on when I was repeating myself like a metaverse avatar 25 minutes ago. I'll try to do that later. Of course. I'll deal with that later. Always a big issue. Always somebody trying to, fight the man. It's like, not my fault. God. Anyway. Fertilizer. Let's get back to fertilizer. The Durham probe. What does that have to do with fertilizer? Let's make the direct correlation. The worse things get, the more people will realize. Like MSNBC had a MSNBC had a segment today where they're like, "Why didn't Russia invade during Trump's administration?" And the obvious answer is, well, because Trump was a much better president and he would have negotiated a deal to ensure that these hostilities didn't take place. So you can look here. There's an MSNBC segment. I'm just saying I don't like when H.A. Badman, does this or that. It's not as appealing. I'm leaving. I'm unsubbing. Hold on, that's me. Okay, MSNBC. So, hold on one second. Why didn't invade under Trump? So here's the here's a hilarious attempt because they're so embarrassed it's taking place under Biden's presidency. They're so utterly embarrassed it's taking place under Biden's presidency. Deborah, thank you. They have to find some way to save face. So I'll, at the risk of, because of copyright issues, I want to let, it's like, the whole thing is like 4 hours of Putin, or 8 minutes of Manafort and Putin, and the GOP changed its foreign policy. So what? President Obama came in with a Russian reset. Was that directly because the Kremlin was paying Democrats? Was that directly because the Kremlin was paying Democrats and influencing 2008 to wrestle control away from McCain and give the presidency to President Obama? What does that mean? Like, what they're trying to say is any foreign policy that they consider benefits Russia is influenced by Russia, is steered or some way influenced or some way, implemented by Russian operatives. You can say the same thing with China and the Democratic Party. In fact, there are operatives that are linked to Democratic politicians. I mean, if you watch this segment on MSNBC, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's like all you hear about is a rehash of all the apoplectic and hysterical and, obsessive stories pertaining to Manafort and 2016 and how U.S. intelligence believed this and that. Not one shred of evidence. It's not one shred of evidence. There's not one shred of evidence that points to Russia installing or not one shred of evidence of Russia installing Trump into the Oval Office, or the Kremlin, implanting or, helping influence Trump to defeat Clinton. Nobody saw a Facebook ad. Did anybody here see a Facebook ad? 470 viewers. Did anyone see a Facebook ad in 2016 that influenced them in any way, shape, or form? Was there ever a Facebook ad at all? No, there wasn't. That influenced anybody. So it's like they fabricated a story. They fabricated a like this fantasy that said, well, Democrats lost because Russia wanted Trump. But they didn't explain how he was installed. And they can't see, Under President Obama, Crimea was taken. So they can't say that President Obama stopped Putin. Under Biden, Kiev is about to be captured under mashed potato brains Biden. So they can't say that Democrats are keeping Ukraine safe. So they have to fall back and say, well, you know what? Why didn't Putin invade during Trump's presidency? Because he was a good president. Because he was a much better president in many ways. Because he would have negotiated. And Democrats don't want to negotiate. And it's like media, there is not, you look at even Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, even Fox News, nobody is talking about, absolutely nobody's talking about the fact that had we simply removed any possibility of Ukraine joining NATO, that was the main issue. Trump didn't care about that issue. This was the sacred cow. So when you see all this, like, this horrible suffering, it's like, mosquito. When you see all this horrible suffering on the news and these journalists like, oh my goodness, oh, Putin, Russia. It's wrong what Russia's doing. It's wrong. But but we could have averted all of this. And there's this reverence for NATO. Had NATO not existed, Ukraine wouldn't have been invaded. I have yet to hear why NATO is important when we have a $700 billion defense budget and, along with Russia, the most nuclear weapons in the world. First last, are we still doing super chat? Yes, first last, thank you. I think people are upset with me because I was momentarily, I had to deal with an issue. So it was like a half an hour ago. So I was repeating myself and people were like, you're repeating yourself. You're repeating yourself. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, give me a break for 1 second. First last, starting it off. Thank you. Thank you, first last. Thank you, first last. Greatly appreciated. Yeah. Thank you so very much, first last. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. First last, thank you so very, very, very much. So here you have, I mean, it's like, it's so sad, and people believe it. Like, people, like, you can look at the comment section here, and it's like, oh yes, oh yes, it's so true. Thanks, Chris Hayes. Thanks, Chris Hayes. Like, no, the reason it's happening is because Biden waived Nord Stream 2 sanctions. He doubled imports of Russian crude oil. He did not, and I repeat, did not, I want to say mashed potato brains, did not give, he did not answer President Zelensky's request to join NATO. He essentially denied President Zelensky's request. So here you can look, Zelensky, this is a DW.com article. It's right here. And there's numerous articles, but there's none, very few better than this one. Zelensky pressed for a firm commitment. First, last, thank you again. Greatly, greatly appreciated. He pressed for a firm commitment on NATO membership from the U.S., but got little encouragement. So he got little encouragement for a reason. $5280 Cinema Group. Hello. Ukraine Zelensky presses Biden on NATO membership, but gets little encouragement. This will explain the answer to this question. Trump, this is genius. Oh my God, Trump is like, it's like a child. This is like 8th grade. Did you hear what Trump said? He's siding with Putin. Meanwhile, it's happening under Biden's watch. So, gee, what do you think's worse? Trump he's not even siding with Putin, but like Trump saying something that is actually true. He outsmarted us. Well, that's the truth. If someone defeats you in the Super Bowl, what are you going to say? Like the scoreboard is right there. You look, if you lose the World Series, you lose the Super Bowl, you lose the playoffs, you lose a contest, a boxing match, or whatever, an MMA contest. So you lose, you get back and you regroup. Democrats and media don't do that. When they lose, they actually turn it into a victory. First, last, thank you, Mad Cow Mark. How could anyone be upset with? Thank you. No, people were very upset. I made a big problem. It was a big problem, Mad Cow Mark. I read the indictment. Big problem. I didn't have a PowerPoint slide. Big problem. Big problem. Mad Cow Mark, thank you. And there's another issue. I have no clue why. Oh my God. Very good friend of mine is very into free speech. Big problem. Mad Cow Mark, thank you. David! H.A. I contend the algorithms can't even see you. You're dancing through the raindrops and Dave. David, thank you. That's a beautiful message. Thank you so very much, David. Thank you. Mad Cow Mark, thank you. First, last, starting it off. First, last, starting it off. Mad Cow Mark, David, thank you. I had to contend with a little issue in the beginning of the segment, and I apologize, but I'm back. With my annoying self, I'm back. Why didn't Putin invade Ukraine during Trump's presidency? Well, maybe because he's a better president. Maybe because he was the first president to step foot in North Korea. He negotiated the Doha Agreement, which Biden botched. Those 13 Americans should be alive today. They're not alive directly because of Biden, not because of Trump, directly because of Biden, because he used the T-ban to help protect the only air base he left open. And those over 100 Afghans who lost their lives should be alive today. Biden he's been an unmitigated disaster. Mashed potato brains has been an unmitigated disaster in every way. In every way. David Von Kettering, thank you. And Mad Cow Mark, thank you. First, last, starting it off, thank you. He's been, look, it's not my style to say this. It's not my style to say this. And I don't want to be, I'm a very positive person, usually. I am very positive. Every day I wake up and I say, I want today to be better than yesterday. Or I say, today is a great day. I'm alive, thank God. Have great things to look forward to, thank God. Okay? And I appreciate, living in this great country and, lucky enough to be born in the greatest country in the world. But we will eventually get out of this, but I think that we're heading not only into a recession, we could possibly get into a depression, economic depression. You could possibly have hedge funds that tank banks. You could possibly have another too big to fail moment. You will have an you will have a stock market collapse. Now, whether the stock market collapse leads to an economic collapse, that's likely. I'm not 100% certain if that will happen. People will lose wealth on paper. That's why, as I beg for Super Chat, people will lose wealth on paper. Save your money every month. Save your money every month. As I beg for Super Chat. Save your money every month. First, last. David, Mad Cow Mark. Every month. Everybody here. Save your money. Because... And there's Lori, you're right. We could enter into a greater nuclear. I said there's going to be a nuclear confrontation. I wrote there's going to be a stock market crash. We're seeing that in slow motion. It's only getting worse. So it is only getting worse, ladies and gentlemen. It is only getting worse. And I don't I don't want to speak in this manner. I don't want to see one positive, if you can say there's a positive, is that the Durham Probe Special Counsel will start indicting more and more people the worse things get. And unfortunately, we have, look, When you have oil prices at all-time highs, just look at the commodity prices. Okay, Bitcoin is tanked. Look at Bitcoin. What happened to Bitcoin recently? Okay, um, it was at 44,000. Then now it's down 38,000. It got down to 37,000, 35,000 in January. It's now at 38,000. It'll get below 30,000, and I think it'll get to 10,000. Okay, I mean, you had what's his name trying to seize wallets, and I mean, you're going to have people and large investors move far away from anything speculative, no matter, even if it's like, you have commodities all through the roof. Now, if you see some red, it's because they're at all-time highs and they've been up the past couple of days. But everything's getting worse. Not better, worse. I mean, we are playing around, and then you have like all of these prices are only going to go up because fertilizer, the Russia's going to ban exports of fertilizer. Okay, and here's the difference between everyone should understand the difference between fertilizer and manure. People just say, "Oh, well, you know what? What's the problem?" Manure does not always contain as many nutrients as fertilizer. Manure is mainly based on animals' diet, whereas fertilizers are made in an industrial environment. Manure is an organic product, whereas fertilizers are a synthetic product. So you can't just say, it's not like they're like shipping like mass quantities of just poop. It's not what's happening. There are different types of fertilizers for different types of commodities, for different types of crops, vegetables, fruits. So you can't mess with that because it's going to mess with global prices of food. Everything is getting more expensive, and at a certain point, the system is going to collapse. You can't continually push the system. You're pushing and pushing and pushing the system. You can't continually do so. Eventually, things are going to collapse. Especially because, like I wrote in the Federalist in October, you can't continually you can't end your economy and then turn it back on like a light switch. Look at all of these commodities that are up. And that's without oil. This is with inflation at 7.5% year over year. And it's more than that. Look at this. Ladies and gentlemen, look at how you might look at it and say, well, what does this have to do with an upcoming depression or economic recession or a global financial collapse or a stock market crash? These are things that I'm predicting. I mean, the depression, I'm not predicting really. It could happen. The recession, for sure, it's going to happen. The stock market crash, without a doubt, is going to happen. You might have a stock market crash without no, you'll have a recession, but you can have a recession, a stock market crash without a depression. But there are people predicting depression. I'm not predicting an economic depression. I'm predicting a stock market collapse and a recession. Look, crude oil, Brent crude, natural gas, gasoline, heating oil, coal, ethanol, okay, propane, uranium, methanol, gold, silver, copper, steel, iron ore, lithium. Well, look at lithium, 600% increase. Look at that. Look at that. Lithium, 600% increase. Okay? Electric car vehicles will be, and if you look at Elon Musk, what did he say today? Very interesting. Elon Musk calls for increase in U.S. oil, gas production. So Elon Musk is saying, hey, hate to say it, but we need to increase oil and gas output immediately. Extraordinary times demand extraordinary measures. Obviously, this would negatively affect Tesla, but sustainable energy solutions cannot react instantaneously to make up for Russian oil and gas exports. Of course we have to. But the Democratic Party runs on this bizarre public relations consensus. So they're going to jettison climate change. Their whole thing is climate change, addressing climate change, combating climate change. So now you have the Republican Party, but without actual conviction. The Republicans are two-faced also a lot of times, but the Trump Republicans generally are not. They generally want to drill and energy. They generally want to be energy independent. They generally want to protect borders. They generally want to not engage in a hawkish, belligerent foreign policy, which, Lindsey Graham is not a Trump Republican. He's an establishment Republican, or a rhino, or a whatever you want to call him. When you have Elon Musk saying we need to increase oil and gas output, climate change activists are now even they've been pushed out of the Democratic Party, policy debate now. So what do Democrats stand for? They keep talking about policies. They've been utter failures at pretty much everything. They govern through media. They govern through condemnation, judgment. They have to silence debate, discourse, discussion. They don't have any specific policies. There are no specific policies. There are no specific policies you can point to and say, oh, well, Democrats are at the forefront of this. What? Do they want to be energy independent? No. Do they want to protect the planet? Well, look what Biden's doing now. He's releasing millions of barrels of oil from the strategic oil reserves. He doesn't even want to ban Russian oil, because then that would ensure that we drill at home. Inflation is through the roof, so you have wealth inequality being exacerbated. Poverty will increase this year exponentially. You see what's taking place with Ukraine. You see what's taking place with Ukraine. So how is anything better under Biden? And then you have MSNBC with this. They're like, oh yeah, palm oil's down big today. It's up year over year, 67%. But everything else, tin, zinc, cobalt and lithium are up. So there you go. Lead, nickel, beef, poultry is up. So all these commodities are up. And you're almost at $120 per barrel. You're almost at $120 per barrel in terms of $120 per barrel. Brent crude. And West Texas Intermediate crude is $115. So how is this? You have oil approaching record highs, inflation at 7.5%, Bitcoin's crashing, the stock market's about to crash like 2 to 3 to 4 to 5,000 points in a day or two, and then that will, begin the collapse towards 20,000. I think the Dow is going to get to around 20,000. I think Bitcoin will get to around 10,000. I think people will have in their, IRAs or their 401ks or their stock accounts or definitely you don't want a Robinhood account at this point. You don't want anything that'll make it easier for you to trade. You probably should stay out of the stock market right now because there's no buying the dip. People go, oh, buy the dip. There's no dip. There's no dip to buy. Right now, until interest rates go up and the Fed completely begins, not only tapering, but ends the quantitative easing completely, you're going to have a situation where people will just trade, and brokerages and investment banks and hedge funds will just, continue to trade, and brokerage companies will make money off the trades. And eventually, when things really descend and collapse, you'll see hedge funds collapse also, just like Archegos. I mean, it's pretty... Everything is inflated. That's true, Jay. Everything is inflated. It's like... Exactly. JG, it was. I mean, once it gets to 120, 130, it gets to 130, it'll approach record highs in no time. But this is really, this is really like frightening. It's my super chat. Thank you. First, last, Mad Cow, Mark, David. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very, very much. Russia calls Russia jolts global fertilizer market. That's why, what was really interesting, ladies and gentlemen, the other night, I think it was last night or the other night, we looked at the commodities prices and it was all green. All the arrows were going up. It was all green. And now we can kind of see. Russia jolts global fertilizer market by seeing end to exports. Losing Russia would be a severe supply shock. Yeah, but at least it'll show the Putin. Not really. It's like they're so mortified that it's happening under Biden. I wonder how they're going to spin. The next thing is, well, how come the stock market didn't crash under Trump? Well, as you know, Manafort. They're just going to, everything is Manafort's fault. Poor Manafort. Why didn't commodity prices go through the roof under Trump? Well, Manafort was indicted, so that's why. What does that have to do with anything? I just said Manafort. And Trump in the Kremlin. Russia jolts global fertilizer market by seeking end to exports. Losing Russia would be a severe shock. Okay. Move comes after North America fertilizer jumps 10%. The you-know-what has literally hit the fan. Literally hit the fan. Literally. Literally. Literally hit the fan. This is February, people. People, this is February. We haven't even, this is the beginning of March. We still have April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. We have 10 more months, 9 more months. Happy, happy, joy, joy. We have 9 more months. We have not even, this is not even, it's just the beginning of the year. Are you kidding me? Russia's effort, and they haven't even halted. Like once they start halting the gas and the oil, you're not going to hear the tough talk anymore. And then can you imagine Biden vetoing? He vetoes this, and then MSNBC will be like, oh well, why didn't Trump veto a bill denying? Well, if you listen to Trump, you would be energy independent, and he would have no problem denying 7% of Russian oil imports if he needed to, because guess what? He would then say, okay, well, you know what? Well, like he did, let's focus on drilling within the United States of America. So, and I was against Keystone XL when I was on the left, but you probably you need to be energy independent, which means that you can't be dependent, especially on any adversary, for anything. We're dependent on China for a great many things. But here, the Ministry of Industry and Trade urged Russian fertilizer producers cut volume to farmers due to delivery issues with foreign logistics companies. The country, which has been facing increasing international sanctions, is a major low-cost exporter of every type of crop nutrient. Losing Russia and their large export volume would be a severe supply-side shock to the market. I mean, we're not even... Russia's move adds uncertainty to the global market when farmers in Brazil, the world's largest fertilizer importer, are already having trouble getting nutrients for crops. The South American nation leads global exports of soybeans, coffee, and sugar. So prospects of reduced ability to fertilizer and high cost could worsen food inflation. Here you have it. They're the second largest producer of potash, which is what? Potassium for it's a type of fertilizer or used in fertilizer. The green market in North America fertilizer price index rose 10% Friday to its highest level since December. Prices for the popular nitrogen fertilizer urea climbed another 5% in New Orleans this week after a record 29% jump on Friday. So you have all of these issues, and you have to ask yourself, what do you think this is the worst, or do you think that things are going to get worse? In the chat, with 530 some plus people, thank you so very much for joining. Do you think things are going to get worse or better? You think things will get worse or better in the chat? Is this mic on? You think things will get worse or better? Fertilizer is going up, so food prices are going to go up, and industries related to fertilizer and agriculture will go up. Prices will go up in those industries also. Fertilizer prices were already soaring due to Europe's natural gas crunch that forced some producers to reduce production or, in some cases, close. Natural gas is a key ingredient in making nitrogen-based fertilizer. Elevated freight rates, tariffs, extreme weather, and sanctions on Belarus, which account for about a fifth of the global supply of potash, also add to rising prices. Halted exports from Russia would mean higher costs for farmers worldwide, potentially increasing food costs when global prices have reached record highs. This is the work of the morally superior. Who pushed for us to end economic activity? That's the question. Exactly, Greg, exactly. TJSE, exactly. Eliza, exactly. Who pushed, Debbie, exactly. Who pushed for who pushed to end economic activity? Who was it? What political side in the chat? What political side pushed to end economic activity? Is this mic on? Bueller. And then you see they pan to the students who are like, who pushed to end economic activity 2 years ago? Who pushed to end it? Exactly, Laura, exactly. Exactly, Hetty. JG, exactly. They pushed to end economic activity. David, exactly. Hetty, exactly. And so what took place was what took place was we ended economic activity gleefully and with enthusiasm. mainly also to kick Trump out of office. And the most apoplectic and hysterical among us, who happen to be also highly educated, wonderful people, pushed to end economic activity. And that opened up a Pandora's box of problems. Endless problems. Endless problems. I mean, then there's look at this. Russia fertilizer export halt may. Oh, here we go. Sorry. It may worsen nitrogen supply squeeze. I mean, we can head towards a global economic collapse, all because of an obsession people had with one issue, the you know what, and then an obsession with combating climate change, and then an obsession with blaming Russia for installing Kremlin for installing Trump, and then a complete disregard. Like the way media has portrayed this is that the West is so innocent and the US and NATO are so innocent. If Trump was in office, this wouldn't have happened because he would have negotiated a deal to ensure that Ukraine doesn't join NATO and um, that we could avert war or an invasion. That's the thing. That's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. In the chat, Bueller, why is it, do you think, that they fear Trump? Or that they don't want, that they're trying desperately to explain why Ukraine is being invaded under Biden's watch when Ukraine wasn't invaded under Trump's tenure? Give me your thoughts in the chat. The reason, ladies and gentlemen, is because Trump would have negotiated a deal. That's how he was able to become the first president to step foot in North Korea. He didn't care about NATO, or I'm saying he didn't revere NATO. There's no reason to revere NATO. We have a $700 billion defense budget. Why do you need to revere NATO? U.S. defense budget. It's $700 billion. $778 billion. Tell me again why we need to revere NATO. Because Russia's going to invade Western Europe? Like what could have happened during when there was the Iron Curtain and the USSR? Okay, well, that's a different story. NATO was important then. Greg McKinney! Greg, thank you so very much. Greg McKinney. Greg, thank you. Thank you very much, Greg McKinney. Greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated, Greg. Thank you so much. To my super chat. I can't do this without you, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your support. Thank you so much, Greg. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. First, last, thank you for starting it off. First, last, Greg, David, and Mad Cow Mark, thank you. Travis! Let's go! Thank you, Travis. Thank you so. I mean, my God, that was last live stream. This live stream, Travis. Thank you. I can't thank you enough. Travis, thank you. Greg, thank you. And then, of course, because I get critiqued all the time, which is fantastic. If you watch the channel, you go ahead and critique me. It's no problem. That's like I get. Could you please stop thanking people in the middle of speaking? It's like, well, if you're kind enough to give super chat, I'm going to thank you. You know? Greg, thank you so much. Travis, I can't thank you enough. Travis, last live stream, this live stream. Travis Ryder, thank you so very, very much. That's the thing. It's like I can't. It's just like in. You know what I feel like sometimes, Travis and Greg and everybody here. This is what I feel like, son. I swear to God. Here. Hold on. Oh, come on. Are you serious? History of the world. History of the world. Hold on. He gets held up. Doesn't he get held up? The 15, the 10 commandments. Wait, what was it that he gets? They don't let you live, they don't let you breathe. Wait, what was it? JG, am I wrong here? Am I mixing something up? In history of the world, Moses has 15 commandments and then 10 fall, or 5 fall, and then it's the 10 commandments. But what's the part where he gets held up with the crossbow? Hold on one second. Hold on. Oh, Lord. The 15, the 10 commandments. Anyway, there's this part where, oh my God, he gets held up. God, okay, we'll forget about it. They don't let you, there's a part, they don't let you live, they don't let you breathe. Anyway. Travis! Thank you, Travis. Greg, thank you. Jay, Matt, World Economic Forum. Jay, thank you. Oh, but don't get saucy with me, Bernays. Buffering. Yeah, there was one part I forgot. Jay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so it's going to get worse. And I'm telling you, the worse it gets, the more they'll insulate themselves. The worse that it'll get, the more that they'll insulate themselves, and they'll say, well, you know what, it's Trump's fault. Somehow it's Trump's fault. Somehow it's for Travis, thank you. Greg, thank you. Jay, thank you. Somehow it'll be Trump's fault. We don't know how, but it'll be Trump's fault. Let's see here. So let's see if we could find, why didn't Russia invade Ukraine under Trump? Let's see the opinion. Why didn't it? Wasn't personal. This is hilarious. So, valuable asset. Why Putin didn't invade? He was such a valuable asset. Here, don't you understand? This is like the cult leader speaking to, like, well, I thought you said you could fly. Don't you understand, man? I can only fly, man, when you're sleeping. They want us to be, like, not unified, man. That's why when you keep asking those questions, why I can't fly and why I can't do certain things, the man wants you to ask those questions, man. It's like a cult leader. Valuable asset. He was such a valuable asset, they didn't want to ruin it. Don't you understand? Putin didn't want to invade. Putin didn't want to invade because, Trump was such a valuable asset. And honestly, why would you ruin that kind of relationship? But Putin wanted to invade under Biden because mashed potato and Democrats are very tough on Putin. That's why he invaded Ukraine. Yeah. Let's see this nonsense. Oh, this is great. Russia was so pleased to see Trump pursuing goals in lines with Moscow agenda. See, Biden, he's pursuing goals that are not in line. So therefore they invaded Ukraine. So that's the good thing about Biden, because he pursues goals that are contrary to the Putin's interests. So that led to a catastrophe, a humanitarian catastrophe. One of the worst moments in European history, or in the history of Ukraine. Don't you see? After the National Archives confirmed that Donald Trump brought classified national security documents to Mar-a-Lago, did he have top secret intelligence on private servers that were unencrypted for 3 months. Oh, that's right. Okay. And then you have this. Okay. The sheer unpredictability of Trump, his anger at being defied, or his willingness to take the occasional big risk, all had to make Putin frightened or wary of him in a way that's simple. Well, that's a good thing then. That's a good thing then. Also, he didn't revere NATO, so he would have negotiated a deal very simple. And Travis, thank you so very much. Greg, thank you so very much. He would have negotiated a deal. He would have simply negotiated a deal. Staff P, thank you. He would have simply negotiated a deal to find some way Oh, this is hilarious. Had Putin launched an invasion, it would have risked upsetting the course he was already delighted to see. How do they convince themselves of this? So, if it's in actuality, inflation is good because it shows that Biden's economic policies are working. Don't you understand? They're working so good that the demand is up for everything. And you know, if demand is up, well, people want things and commerce is flowing. Yeah. Oh, Democrats. I wish I was as smart as you. You mean that the worse things get? You mean the worse things get, the better they get? Yay! You mean, we had record low unemployment in Trump, and we had less than 2% inflation. Well, that was exactly what Putin wanted. Don't you get it? Putin and Russia wanted us to have a good economy because then they could sell more fertilizer. It's so easy to understand. Had Putin launched an invasion, it would have risked upsetting the course he was already glad to see. No. He knew that he didn't launch an invasion, number one, because we had the economic capacity to at that point in time, we hadn't completely obliterated our economy. So inflation wasn't going through the roof, and we had the economic might to see any sanctions through for the long term. He knows, Putin, that sanctions are short term now, that we can't possibly continue with these sanctions because the sanctions hurt us almost as much, and in many cases more, than it hurts them. But mainly, Trump negotiated deals. The reason that he didn't, because he didn't revere NATO. And you don't have to revere NATO. Even, let's just say that NATO is an obstacle to Putin. That doesn't mean you must revere it. Just because Putin eats and drinks and wears clothing doesn't mean you should do the opposite. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Greg, thank you. Mad Cow Mark, thank you. Travis, thank you. First Last, thank you. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. He would have negotiated a deal before there was an invasion. Biden was unwilling to do so because he's beholden to NATO. See, Trump puts the country's interests first. Biden puts NATO's interests first. That's the difference. Trump puts the country's interests first. Democrats put multinational organizations, their interests, their proclamations or whatever. I don't even want to get into it. And you can make the same case, not with Russia, but with China and Democrats. Why didn't Democrats want to find out the origins of you-know-what? Well, that coincided with the national interests of another country. Well, you could do all of that stuff. Putin was so pleased with an American president who pursued goals in line with Moscow's agenda. So did President Obama with a Russian reset. Does that mean that didn't stop Putin from taking Crimea? He had a great relationship with President Obama. That's literally why President Obama was elected in terms of foreign policy. He said the 80s want your foreign policy back in 2012 because Romney was the hawk with Russia, and he came in opposing McCain's foreign policy, saying there's a Russian reset. So this MSNBC article completely ignores recent U.S. history. But then again, recent U.S. history, you might as well be talking about the Peloponnesian Wars. You might as well be talking about the Peloponnesian Wars. Thucydides. So I mean, it's like, Travis, thank you again. So kind of you. Greg, thank you again. First, last, thank you. He was such a valuable asset, they didn't want to invade. It's like the worst. Don't you understand? When the stock market collapse takes place, and somehow it'll be Trump's fault. Biden is turning out to be one of the worst presidents you could say. George W. Bush is the worst in my view. Hoover, Jimmy Carter, and Biden. And Biden, in a way, is worse than any of them, in a way, because Biden does not really, he governs through media. Everything is filtered, like any decision he makes is filtered through a public relations algorithm. Hetty, thank you. Thank you so much. Erica, hello. Exactly. He's not even talking about Build Back Better. They're not talking about Build Back Better. They've given up. Because Build Back Better is about combating climate change, and they definitely can't. Could you imagine? Like, Manchin saved the country. This man saved the country along with Cinema. Could you imagine? Your ambitious climate change act. Well, it's important. I'm not saying climate change is important. Combating climate change is important. You don't want to do it, though, right after. CQC, thank you. You don't want to do it right after you've tanked your entire economy. People, it's going to get worse. This is going to get worse, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want it to get worse. I mean, at the end of the day, this is something media is not going to tell you. Russia and Putin are going to get exactly what they want, which is a guarantee or some kind of firm commitment that Ukraine won't join NATO. That's exactly what they want. That's exactly what they want. Once they get to Kiev, well, they're right outside, but they already have control of Europe's largest nuclear power plant. And Russia is now probably either learning from us or we're learning from them. Is imprisoning people for spreading disinformation or fake news. So you're deplatformed in the United States, and so that's a very good way to get, to usher the world into global annihilation with nuclear weapons. Each side has their own propaganda, and God forbid that information is, God forbid information is God forbid anybody can, God forbid anyone learns information that one political side deems as inappropriate or disinformation or misinformation or whatever. It's like, okay. Exactly, TikTok, exactly. They have no problem with that. It is pretty unbelievable. Statistically low. It is pretty unbelievable. It's pretty unbelievable. I mean, the level of here. I mean, they made such a big deal about the super yacht. It's like, well, Biden's approval jumps. Not. Give me a break. Biden's approval didn't. He hasn't. He's done nothing. Biden's approval, if it did jump, is because all of media is propping him up. Nobody's blaming him for any of this. If this happened under Trump, all they would say is, you see, you see, you see, it's taking place. The Kremlin has what he wants. Biden's approval jumps to 47%. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That is the most worthless poll if that's, oh, well, NPR, PBS. Well, there you go. Who do you think they're polling? Do you think that the average independent watches NPR or PBS? Hardcore Democrats do. Oh, hi, this is PBS. Oh, ring. Hi, do you have 35 minutes to 45 minutes to answer questions about President Biden? Well, yeah, of course. Go ahead. Okay, press 1 or 2 pertaining to the answer, depending on the question. Okay. I have nothing better to do. As long as it's, I can find some way to disparage Trump. Okay, great. Thank you. There's no way that he's at 47%. Inflation is through the roof. Oil prices are through the roof. Gas prices are skyrocketing. Ukraine is invaded. Kiev is about to be captured by Russia, all under President Mashed Potato Brain Biden's watch. And suddenly his approval is it's 47%? No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. We will end this in about 5 minutes, people. About 5 minutes. Let's see here. It's only going to get worse, unfortunately. But Russia, oh, you know what? These are crisis in Ukraine. So a 10 step for Europe, delivering gas and import clean energy. Markets brace. Well, if U.S. refineries boycott Russian oil, that will definitely that will ensure that gas is a lot more than $5 a gallon. Will U.S. refineries boycott Russian oil? Despite IEA members agreeing to release 60 million barrels of oil, and that's only like less than a week of not even U.S. consumption. All right. So the fertilizer ban, people, that's a big thing. That is a big thing. The fertilizer ban is a huge thing. Rockabilly guitar, exactly. Nobody likes Biden. It's just they dislike Trump a lot more than they would ever like Biden. That's the thing. I don't vote for Trump because I dislike someone else. I didn't like Clinton's policies. That's why I voted for Bernie. Well, I didn't vote. I didn't vote in 2016, but 2020 I voted for President Trump because I wanted his policies, which were great policies. This would not have happened primarily because, in terms of foreign policy, he was much better. Pompeo is off the rails along with Lindsey Graham. These people are like, oh, how can I become a Republican that Republicans could rally around? It's like, well, Pompeo said, he basically escalated the China-Taiwan debacle, and the whole thing's going to be a debacle soon, unfortunately. So, 2 more minutes and we're out of here. Elon Musk, very interesting. Very, very interesting. And then on Friday, this is great. On Friday, Blinken downplayed the notion of sanctioning Russia's energy sector. I mean, no strategic interest in doing that. What do you mean, no strategic interest? You're. Oh, but there's a strategic interest in getting the yachts of billionaires. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? They just don't want inflation to be worse. That's all. They just don't want inflation to be worse. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much. To my super chat, first, last, thank you for starting it off. Travis, thank you so much, Travis. I really appreciate that. And Greg and everyone here, Matt Calmark, everybody here, thank you so much. To my super chat, thanks everybody. I will see you tomorrow, everyone. God bless. I'll have an upload on the Durham probe, um, on the Durham probe revelation. Um, I'll have an upload on the Durham probe revelation um, in about 7, 8 hours. People, thanks so much, everybody. David, JG, everyone here.